welcome everyone. Once again, it is the Smooth Thrills Radio Hour, and I am your host, Jason Rutledge. So, a few weeks back, we made some posts on Instagram asking you, our dear listeners, to vote on who has the better movie Camaro, Bobby from Aloha, Bobby and Rose, against a few other contenders. Now, at the time of this recording, those results are about dead even, so if you haven't checked that out yet and want to voice your opinion, head over to our Insta at Smooth Thrills Radio Hour and please do so. We'd love to hear from you. Now, in this episode, we're talking about the movie Inside Daisy Clover, the thrills and the dangers of being a child actor, the realities of making movies in the 1960s, and a little bit about the process of adapting books to film. Now, I know that sounds heavy, but it's a good time, and we certainly hope you enjoy your listening experience once again. But first, a little public service message. Now, if you haven't seen it before, Inside Daisy Clover is not a tight 90. The movie is a little long, but please see it all the way through. That's the way Christopher Plummer wants it.
Picture's a big investment. I want it finished. Afterwards, I don't care what happens to you.
We mentioned before, Katie, and I'll remind you again, one thing to remember when you see Lair of the White Worm is based on one of Bram Stoker's last novels.
Okay.
When Stoker was deep in the throes of a horrible syphilis infection that would take his life, so he was not altogether upstairs when he wrote this book, and it definitely...
Which is perfect for Ken Russell.
It shows,
because didn't Ken Russell do Devils?
Yes.
Which I still haven't seen either, but from what I've understood is also very...
It's the feel-good movie of 1971. Just ask anyone.
I think it's still on Shudder. Maybe I'll do a double bill of those two.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good time.
There'll be an upswing in spirits as well, I think, after those. Actually, Lair of the White Worm's a lot of fun. You know.
It is.
And I forgot to watch that. That's like a kind of a...
Staple?
Once in a while, like Halloween. I don't want to say Christmas.
Christmas.
It's a Christmas staple. A Halloween staple. That and Gothic, which I fucking love as well. At any rate, I don't know why Jason brought that up. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. What was I thinking? So to start off, I think we should point out the movie we're talking about in this episode takes place roughly between 1936 and 1938. Kind of important because this means it takes place before 1939, which is the year Jackie Coogan got his revenge. Now, Jackie Coogan is mostly known to modern audiences as Uncle Fester from The Addams Family, but before that, he was a child actor who got his start working with Charlie Chaplin. As a child, Coogan earned, we estimate, somewhere around $4 million, which in today's dollars is about $55 million. All of which he thought he was going to receive when he turned 21. However, it turned out that his darling mother and stepfather blew most of it on themselves, claiming that nothing was ever promised to Jackie and that he was, quote, being a bad boy for even asking about it. Coogan sued and eventually got back about $126,000. That lawsuit resulted in the passage of the California Child Actors Bill, otherwise known as the Coogan Act. It guarantees at least 15% of a child actor's earnings go into a trust that no one else can touch, and it provides some other protections around working hours, time off, and education. None of that, however, was around to help the poor soul at the center of this movie, Inside Daisy Clover. Welcome, everybody, to the Smooth Thrills Radio Hour. We are indeed talking about Inside Daisy Clover. Nathan, this was one of your suggestions when I mentioned that we needed something from the 1960s in the lineup. Why this one? What was it? Because I honestly had not heard of this movie before you mentioned it. What
Really?
was it that, yeah.
Me either, but that's nothing new.
It's you were looking for mid-60s kind of interesting films, and it's not one that, it did have a lot of fanfare back in the day, but it doesn't get really noticed anymore.
Right.
And it's one of those rarities where it's like it's insider perspective on the film industry, particularly in the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's very reminiscent of the multiple adaptations of A Star is Born.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have later films like Sullivan's Travels and very introspective about the industry. And it's very interesting. And it's got an awesome cast. And then
It does.
As you stated after watching it, you said it was a bit of a horror film.
It feels like
So
a
it's
horror
this
movie to me.
very interesting movie that you don't know what you're going to get with it.
The music stings at the end were very horror-esque, and I was kind of
Yeah.
like,
Andre
oh,
Previn.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's weird because, you feel like, okay, I'm watching, maybe it's a comedy, and then round about half an hour into it, for me, it just turns into a horror movie. It's bizarre.
Exactly a half hour into it.
Mhm.
When, the Christopher Plummer character starts making that dream a harsh reality. Yeah.
Right. Christopher Plummer, by the way, playing the part of Raymond Swan. You may also remember him from such classics as Spiral Staircase, Star Crash, Dreamscape, Red-Blooded American Girl, and of course Dracula 2000. Who could forget?
Yes.
But rounding out the cast, we also have Natalie Wood, of course, and Roddy McDowall, who were both themselves child actors. I think Natalie Wood started at the age of 4, maybe 5, just a few weeks before her 5th birthday or something like that. Robert Redford, who I don't think was a child actor. I don't remember when he started.
If he was, damn.
This is a very early role for him, and nice little spotlight for him too.
Yeah,
it's got an exceptional cast. I mean, Ruth Gordon's amazing in this as well,
Gordon,
and such a heartbreaking performance,
And Harold Gould as the cop on the pier. Yeah. Anybody who doesn't know Harold Gould, if you've seen any 2 episodes of any TV show that was made in the 1970s, you've seen Harold Gould before. Because he was in everything.
Yeah, character actor extraordinaire. Yeah.
Also in the Sting and Front Page, but I don't think he ever had any leading roles in movies. He was always kind of that.
The Sting with Redford, by the way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know of any major lead roles for him. But yeah, he was one of those valuable assets. You would just put him in a movie or a television series and you don't have to worry. I mean, he'd deliver every time.
And you mentioned Ruth Gordon, who we all remember from Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can, obviously.
Hell yeah.
I think she did some other stuff.
Yeah, she did a few other films. Yes. I mean, who can forget Look What Happened to Rosemary's Baby?
Of course. Of course.
The answer is many people have.
Many people forgot what. Well, you mentioned there was a lot of, what'd you say? I think you used the word ballyhoo, perhaps, about at the movie at the time. This was a December release, if I remember right. So I think it's...
Yeah, it had a limited release, I think, and then it went wide in like February following year,
possibly,
66.
Well, that would have been good for them because December of that year, you were up against like Dr. Zhivago and Thunderball, which were sucking the life out of everything. Possibly Plague of the Zombies. I don't know. That might have had something to do with it. Or Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine was still around, yeah.
Dr.
That
Goldfoot,
Darn Cat.
Yeah.
Don't forget That Darn Cat with Roddy McDowall. Was also in theaters at the time.
Yeah.
But hey.
You watch it, and one of the interesting things is the fact that Natalie Wood is in this role, and she was maybe 26, 27 when she did this.
I think 27, yeah, playing a 15-year-old.
Yeah. And you think of other actors that might have been better suited, and one might have been like Haley Mills in terms of age, but she was too squeaky clean of an image with Disney at that time that she later did more adult fare, but at that time it wouldn't have happened. But I was trying to just think about which one would be good for that role. I think it helped to have been in the industry as long as Natalie Wood had to inform her performance. Mm-hmm. And it's the other thing that's interesting about this film is the commentary. Do we know how hellacious her experiences were as a child actor? Like, would she relate to that?
Or Natalie Wood herself?
Yeah.
The only story I've ever heard is that, I forget which movie it was, that she was required to cry on cue and wasn't able to do it. So her mother, who had to be there at the time
I've heard
she was
this
a minor,
story.
Destroyed a live butterfly right in front of her to get her to cry on camera. If that was typical, then yeah, it's pretty horrendous, but I don't know anything for certain about it.
That's just interesting.
So few people make that transition from child actor to adult actor, though, that you have to think there's something rotten at the core of that whole system.
Well, you pointed out, two of the people in this film, McDowall and herself, are, probably two of the best examples of succeeding in this industry and having a career as a kid and an adult. Often people don't even relate the two.
Right.
You know, you don't think about the fact that Roddy McDowall was a child actor and did movies like My Friend Flicka and, you know, that kind of stuff.
You think Roddy McDowall, you're thinking Shakma and Angel 4 Undercover.
Oh, I love
Yes,
Shakma.
absolutely. Angel 4.
Possibly.
I have that on Laserdisc.
Class of 1984.
Of course you do.
And of course,
Class of 1984,
his two cat
He was in
movies,
Fright Night.
that Darn Cat and The Cat from Outer Space. Yeah.
Oh, I used to watch The Cat from Outer Space when I was a kid.
And Legend of Hell House, who he was in with another child actress who was in The Innocents with Deborah Carr, and I cannot remember her name now. Pamela.
I know who you're talking about.
Oh, I can't remember her name. Anyway.
Remo Williams. He was in one of those.
What? There was only one of those.
Remo Williams.
Oh, he's in
Prophecy.
the TV. He's in the TV series that one.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he's actually a good replacement for Joel Grey. Like, you could see that dynamic, but at the same time, you're playing Korean. But whatever.
Yeah. He didn't do a lot of villain roles. I think of his character in this movie of Baines as just a straight up evil, malicious snake. You know, everything he says is just dripping with awfulness. Like, even Miss Clover, you'll find your shoes on my table. He delivers it in such a way that it sounds menacing somehow.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely convinced that Baines didn't off the mother in this one too.
It's so interesting. I never
he drops her off at
gave
the house
his character his second thought, though.
He does that weird, like, have a good night, Miss Clover, and then takes off.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh my God, he killed her. I'm not
I just took it as in, like, they clearly looked down on these people.
Yeah.
I never took it as necessarily malicious. So it's interesting that it could be seen in different ways. This kind of adds to why you think horror movie. Like, I'm not going to say that there aren't things in this that lead to it being a potential horror movie, but that I never even crossed my mind.
On a second viewing, I wasn't even so sure that the dealer mom set fire to her own house. I'm thinking now it's Baines that did that. I can't prove it, but he might have done it.
Yeah, there's a lot of exposition we don't have, and unfortunately, I've not read the novel, which may expand upon that.
I haven't read the book either.
It is it's interesting, especially like you said, when you do repeat viewings where you kind of read into things, because I definitely feel as if the Christopher Plummer character, Raymond Swan, is basically, he's very evil at the core, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, well, one parallel that I've always wondered about, and I've never heard De Palma speak on it, but I'd always wondered if the character of Paul Williams in Phantom of the Paradise was somehow inspired his character.
I want to believe that they're related. I want to believe that Swan in Phantom of the Paradise is the grandchild of Swan.
Well, he's eternal, though, in Phantom of the Paradise, right? Because he sells his soul. To a point, he's eternal, right? But what's interesting about that is it's music industry. I mean, it's totally plausible. He went from film into music.
That's a really interesting...
Same cinematic universe,
I like that. Possibly. It's not a good double bill.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
A Swanage double bill.
Yes, Raymond Swan is an evil bastard, but is he the villain of this movie?
Yeah.
I think it's Wade. I'm going to say why.
Well, I mean, Wade's not... Well,
Wade...
That's a whole other can of worms.
I mean, both of them are very manipulative, but at least Swan is honest about what he's doing. He doesn't lie to her. And Wade does. He tells her right up front. He tells her right up front,
Swan
Katie.
Is the worst because he's all charismatic about it. And then when he fucking slaps her in the face, reality comes rushing to her, realizing this fucker does not care about her, he's made her to believe that.
Remember, Katie, when he's talking to her on the Angel Pier before they get in the car to leave, when he's saying to her, it doesn't smoke, it doesn't get its hair cut
I get
without
that,
permission.
But
he refers to her as it repeatedly.
I know, but when he is in the garden with her, the night that his wife has the breakdown over Wade, and he picks her up and kisses her, like, it gives her that false hope that she is more than an it to him. And that's why I think he is shittier, because he wraps it in silk, even though he's a piece of garbage through and through.
That's where I get the whole connection to Paul Williams' character is the whole, it's like she's bound in blood by contract, especially that scene where she gets slapped by him and he's basically,
done.
And
I don't care what happens to you after this.
Right.
Yeah. We've got to complete this. This is,
you don't cost me
and
money.
And then earlier there's a scene when he hands her the older contract and says, tear it up. And that scene, there's so much power in that moment.
And it's get her sister to sign this. Like, it's not even, it's like nothing she wants out of it even matters.
Right.
They wouldn't have. That's a reality for any child actor, is you have zero control over what's happening to you.
The sad part is, so do the same with adults, though. I think there's a correlation that should be made that in Hollywood, and this goes back to, even if we were talking about Last Night in Soho earlier. I don't know if that's going to be part of this or not, but it kind of goes with that too. Like, this is what you wanted. This is what you asked for. You have to do whatever it takes to get there. It doesn't matter how it affects you or impacts you. This is what you wanted. And it's shitty. Like, there's a lot, even with any age actor, that this film can expound upon. It sucks more for child actors, and I'm glad to hear that things got better. But, the shittiness is there regardless.
You're still the product of a machine.
Big time.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing, is like, she's also becomes instantly engrossed in this fast moving train where, I mean, it's crazy. Like, her screen test is extremely elaborate for a screen test. She's all made up. She's got the costume. Christopher Plummer's character, presumably, although he does know, he acts as if he doesn't know her talent initially when he meets her. He's like, why did you come to see me? So for them to launch into some elaborate screen test, it's just very odd. You don't know her vocal capabilities.
Well, she sent the recording.
But he acts as if he doesn't know that,
Right.
True. But that could have been another manipulation tactic, making her think the ball is in her court, even though it clearly never was from the get-go.
It's an amazing scene because he's almost in total darkness when he speaks to her for the first time. And she's just presumably alone in this giant soundstage. And of course, wife comes out after that. Speaking of the wife, played by Catherine Bard, who is amazing at this as Melora Swan, it's clear in the movie that she had a relationship.
Did a lot of Shakespeare.
I can see that.
With Wade also.
That was a joke.
Yeah. Oh. She could be. Oh, Bard. Okay. Fuck off. I got there.
Nathan,
but she is boisterous in her acting that I could have seen her being a stage performer.
No, I'm just kidding. She may have. I don't know.
Well, it doesn't matter.
It would have been typecasting, though. Let's be honest.
Well, anyway, the question that I wanted to ask, and what I've kind of wondered about, and I'm still not sure about after watching this a few times, how does Wade get to that bedroom? When I first saw this, given the way
he
things
was hiding from the party.
Given the way things played out later, when Melora talks about her previous relationship with Wade, I remember thinking, okay, so Raymond Swan planted him there to put him on Daisy and get this guy away from his wife. I don't know. Maybe it's a possibility. He's, like I said, he's a manipulative guy. He may have done that on purpose.
You know the origin of his character in the book, right?
No, I don't, actually.
So Lambert wrote the screenplay from his own book, but his character is gay in the book, like fully. Lambert himself was gay. So he was like one of those, kind of like a Charles Laughton type, where he's gay, but he has to marry. Ironically,
that's why they want to fix him.
Right. And it's not deliberately mentioned because of, that wasn't the game back then. They just insinuated things lightly. So the change was to make him bisexual. So you'd have the whole affair with Natalie Wood's character and his wife as well. But you don't really get a lot of exposition as to how he has this separate lifestyle. So
it's one line.
Just kind of
it comes down to one line in the whole movie where she says he never could turn down a charming boy. And that's it. I do know that Redford was pretty upset about that being added in. that he felt it shouldn't be that explicit. Not that it's incredibly explicit anyway.
Back then, though, I feel like it was a bigger deal. Back then, when the film was set, maybe not as much. When the film was made in the 60s,
65,
right?
Yeah.
So maybe not as much then, but the film is set in the 30s, where it would have been even more taboo.
Probably, yeah. I think there's something to that, sure.
But I also don't think they were completely comfortable with exposing that taboo in the 60s either. Like they really could have pushed the envelope a little bit more. But I think, that always gets talked about as being scaled back just because of societal norms and not to offend anyone. But I think another reason maybe is that having written the initial screenplay, going back and reading it as a producer, you might be like, holy shit, this Daisy's life is completely horrendous. Not only does her career become a complete nightmare, lose her mother, all that stuff, but then she marries someone who has no intention of being sexual with her whatsoever. I mean, that's just even darker for
Abandons her in the Arizona desert.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it also just adds on to the fact that her character has just been dealt every shitty hand possible.
Right. Yeah. How do we lighten this up, at all? Maybe that was a casualty, like script-wise.
She doesn't just lose her mother. She has to pretend like her mother is dead for almost a year.
And then lose her mother.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah. That's like... that whole scene where he's training her on what to say to the paparazzi is horrific.
And then when they're going through the whole, reel explaining her back life, tragically lost her dad when she was 9 in a train accident, blah, blah. And it's just everything is completely fabricated. And yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I've never wanted to be a semblance of famous just because I think it would be exhausting having no semblance of privacy or self, because you can't be yourself. You have to be what everybody else wants you to be. And I think this film does a really good job at showing just how much she abandoned who she was to live this quote unquote dream. And it's heartbreaking.
It is not. They do make the point when she first meets Wade that she had to change everything but her name, and his name was the only thing they changed. Because
it wasn't sexy enough. That was the reason.
Yeah, the whole newsreel thing where they make up this entire family of ancestors that came over from Ireland or something. Just like, oh my God, this is an elaborate ruse. And this is the only really the only complaint I have about the movie is it makes its point over and over and over again. We didn't have to have the whole musical number talking about how fake the circus is. They kind of like, okay, I get it.
I like that number, though.
I do too, and I think the repetition is important.
Especially with that latter scene where she has to go over her vocals.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked as well, I suppose. So you
didn't feel like the movie was a bit long? It also gives you a scope of what's at stake here for the production, and as to why Swan wants this completed, because I don't know if he deems this the masterpiece of the studio at the time, but he's putting everything behind it, obviously. So there's higher stakes, and you get a vibe of that. And that's something that reminds me a lot of the Judy Garland version of A Star Is Born, where you have these elaborate musical numbers. And also the other dynamic there is that you have somebody that's, well, in Judy Garland's case, way too old for the role, but as a young ingenue, it's not plausible. Judy Garland at that age, but it's more plausible with Natalie Wood. But anyway, it just reminds me of that quite a bit, and the darkness, of course, as well.
Speaking of the musical aspect of this movie, Warner Brothers was not really doing those kinds of movies that they're portraying in this movie necessarily. Was Warner's taking a shot at MGM here?
Well, they were doing musicals. I mean, Meet Me in St. Louis and A Star Is Born were in the 50s, but they were musicals. So they weren't really doing them in the 60s, that's for sure. But then you're also making a piece based off of 1930s era of filming. So it's kind of
weren't
inescapable.
musicals huge then?
Of course, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
and certainly, like he said, with MGM, they were like the rulers of the musical.
They would have been doing stuff like what, Gold Diggers of 1935 or something like that. Or that was their jam. Universal had monster movies. Warner did gangster movies. MGM did musicals. It just came to mind when I was seeing all this. That I'm thinking they're maybe taking a few shots over the bow here, poking some fun at MGM. Maybe not. I'm reading too much into it, perhaps.
I think they're just, well, I don't know if it's making fun. It's just that's the backdrop of the industry, in that particular vein that she goes into. So it's inevitable. You've got to create that fake studio, and that, you can compare it to MGM if you want or not. I mean, either way, I don't know that they're commenting on MGM necessarily.
I think it's awesome whenever films show that kind of behind the scenes look anyway, because the average person doesn't see or know just what goes into that kind of stuff. So anyone that's going through what she is going through in her normal life without the singing aspect and the acting aspect, whenever you would have to like put that energy in something so repetitious anyway, like no wonder that's what led to her breakdown, because it's like, had she not had to go in and do that, she could have probably maybe maintained for a little bit longer in the turmoil that's going on in her brain. But by having to do that scene and watch herself and realize that wanting to live this lifestyle is what got her and put her through all of this shit anyway. Like, that scene was really impactful for me personally.
Yeah, they really pull no punches in this.
There have been a lot of those kind of inside Hollywood movies, but I always have to wonder if the Hollywood system is ever truly capable of making an honest movie about itself.
There have been glimpses of that throughout. I think what's interesting about movies like this one or the Oscar or, other films of this ilk is why they were greenlit in the first place. Like, why would the studio be totally cool with telling this kind of story? It's not an independent film.
No.
And that'd be more acceptable, I would think, just some independent force making this. But, you got to kind of put a mirror to yourself as a studio, whether or not these studio heads didn't exist with the company back in the 30s, but, still, it's a bold movie to tell as a wide release, I think.
Especially if those issues were going on, maybe not right then, but with the care and treatment of childhood actors and all of that. It's kind of like with the amount of films we have now that are showing stuff that is reminiscent of the Me Too movement. Like, when the Me Too stuff started happening, we saw more films that were bringing up those topics, and we even got ones that were based on actual stories. So it seems like maybe if that had been going on in Hollywood at that time, this film is going to hit differently then because of that, if that makes sense.
I could ask him, what was the trigger maybe that led them to making this one? Or
well, it probably would have been when he wrote the book, I guess, would be the original point of it.
Yeah, and he was a famous screenwriter at the time too. He was in demand.
Roman Spring of Miss Stone, I Never Promised You a Rose Garden.
Yeah, but he had also apprenticed Nicholas Ray for a time, back in the 50s, and it was in demand, and it was an interesting film, I just think, to come out at that time, particularly with everyone involved, I think. So not only do you have Natalie Wood on board with this, but you've got someone like Roddy McDowall, and I just wonder what their perceptions on the source material were. Like, did they, this is just a good movie we're doing, or did they think, this is true to form, this is something we've experienced firsthand? But then you also take the child actor out of the equation, and you really still have that same story with like the young ingenue, whether she was 15 or she was 20 or whatever. And a lot of the male actors as well, who, once you have somebody under contract, you do what they tell you to do.
I do like that they showed both sides of it, that it isn't just women characters or actresses that this happens to.
Yeah. There's other dead bodies on the highway,
Fame has obligations, Daisy.
Right. Yeah.
One of my personal favorite Inside Hollywood movies is kind of hard to find, but if you can ever find a copy of What Price Hollywood, it was made during the 1930s. It's well worth checking out. Inside Daisy Clover has more of a tone, I think, of Mulholland Drive than What Price Hollywood, but it's still worth checking out. One of those great Depression era sort of movies.
Depression in more ways than one.
Yes, you could say that.
Well, it's funny to me that one you said was made in the 30s, that these problems started then and are still happening now in Hollywood.
Oh,
yeah.
That's very interesting to me.
No, What Price Hollywood wasn't necessarily a child actor-oriented film, but it was still one of those.
But it's still issues in Hollywood.
Yeah, the title alone. Yeah. Oh, did anyone in the whole, I just made note of it, and it's just a faux pas, but, you know, it actually doesn't matter because you're making a movie about making a movie, so maybe it doesn't matter at all. But when in that scene where has the mirror and it's the musical number, and then she walks through the mirror and it's the other actor, and then she's performing, but they're doing different gestures at the same time.
Yeah.
And you can see Natalie Wood's shadow clearly in front of the crew behind her, which she's not supposed to. But okay, you can just forget it. It's a movie within a movie. It wouldn't have been in frame probably for the movie that they were shooting.
What
Forget I
are you
mentioned
talking
it.
about?
I was like, are you asking a question? Like,
No, I'm just stating it. 'Cause I was like, you know, they tried everything else to frame it perfectly, but yet her shadow is inevitable. It's there on the floor.
Oh, okay.
But would it have been in the thing they were recording shot?
That's what I'm saying. It makes no difference probably because this isn't a movie where they're trying to hide that. You don't see the actual matted frame of the film that they're doing. So,
okay.
Like I said, forget it. Forget it. So you both first time watch. So you dug it? Jason has to have. You've seen it like 10 times now.
The only thing that got on me is it felt like it was 10 hours long to me. And maybe it's because I watched it so early, but the pacing is very
it's a long movie.
Peculiar. I mean, it's only 2 hours, but it feels like 4 hours.
It takes its time.
So that was my only, like, I paused it at one point and I was like, I still have an hour and 15 minutes left. Like, how did that happen? But it's very good. Like, I never was like, I regret watching this or anything, which is a good thing.
It's just this close to feeling like it should have an intermission stuck in it somewhere. It feels like definitely feels like a long movie.
Yeah. Again, that's another reason it reminds me of the Garland Star is Born, which was like almost 3 hours, and that did have an intermission, and it kind of feels like it was after a musical number, if the memory serves. And when you're watching this, you must almost expect for it to be there, but it's not. Also, that would have been very much in vogue with the films of the 30s if they had just prompted an intermission in there. And maybe they did theatrically. Maybe we don't know that. Maybe it was separated.
Some alternate cut of Inside Daisy Clover out there somewhere.
Well, they usually cut those intermissions when they put them on video anyway, you know. And especially if it was back in VHS days and you had 2 tapes to tell the movie, you know.
Oh, the good old days.
My Blu-ray copy of Lawrence of Arabia kept the overture and intermission intact.
Yeah.
How could you not?
Well, now everybody's restoring everything, and you want to. I like that. I prefer that. You know.
Plus, when you got a killer soundtrack like that, you got to play it out.
I mean, what's another 15 minutes for Lawrence of Arabia? You know.
No, that's
It's like pocket change. Just throw it in there. Who cares? You got nothing else you're going to watch today.
How do we feel about the ending of this movie?
I mean, like the ambiguity of it.
Funny? Is it supposed to be sad? I don't know.
Are you talking about the suicide attempt or the explosion?
Both.
Or both?
Well, I took it as in, not the suicide part, but the blowing up the house part that she's going to just take the reins back on her own life.
Yeah.
Like, and I kind of hate that they don't show the resolve there, but then I also kind of like that they don't show the resolve because then you kind of can just fabricate whatever you want on that.
Yeah, it's up in the air. But like the suicide attempt is almost comical.
They're playing it for laughs.
Yeah. I mean, the phone rings. She's like, fuck, I gotta answer the phone.
When the lady put the phone back on the hook and then the phone started ringing again, that was funny.
It just feels like after the previous hour and a half or so of the movie that's a weird place to want to try to land.
Yeah, but you also kind of need some levity, maybe,
When it just shows the absolute ridiculous hand that life has thrown her way. Like, no matter what she tries to do, she cannot get her footing on any decision that she's trying to make on her own.
Maybe
so it kind of adds to that.
Nothing is panned out.
After the house blows up and she walks off the beach and fulfills her dream of taking up cooking and learning how to do something besides fish burgers. Who knows?
Fish burgers and beans.
And hot chocolate.
Yeah,
stunning combination.
That's going to be a rough evening.
Disgusting.
I know.
I don't want to see that recipe.
You had me at the fish burgers. You lost me at the hot chocolate. I'm sorry.
See, I'm there for the hot chocolate.
Not the hot steaming pot of fish burgers or whatever the hell is supposed to be in there. I don't eat fish.
That is the only reason. Because other than that, every time I saw the fish and chip sign or the shrimp and chip shot sign, I was like, man, that sounds good.
Yeah, have either of you see any parallels in any current films to this one?
Last Night in Soho.
Kinda. That's one of those be careful what you wish for sort of films, sure.
Yeah,
it's a cautionary tale.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a mention of Black Swan.
Yes, and I was curious if he had any Aronofsky had any influence from this film, kind of like where you were saying with
Inside Jennifer Wells.
No, the Paradise, Phantom of the Paradise. Like, is it just like a little? Like, clearly, it's not about ballet, yada yada.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder if he's ever said, "Oh yes, I got," because you get what I'm saying.
I would assume so. I mean, no great art is made in a vacuum, and everything can influence anything.
That is true, but a lot of people, you have ones that are very like staunch on being like, this influenced this did this, but I feel like Aronofsky is very quick to sometimes sweep his influences under the rug.
Possibly.
When it's almost a direct take from it. I recently watched Paprika and Dear God, that's just Inception. So it's like...
Dear God was Greg Kinnear, wasn't it?
I love Greg Kinnear.
No, Aronofsky is not as upfront about his influence as, say, Bruno Mattei or any of your Italian directors who just blatantly steal shots from other movies.
But he's highly influenced by Italian directors as well. Yeah. I think we can all think of one in particular for Black Swan. But anyway, yeah.
It just, watching this made me think of, Britney Spears getting out of her conservatorship and how the Disney machine functions just like Raymond Swan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In this very chew 'em up, spit 'em out sort of a process. Okay, once you're not cute enough to be on the show, bye, you're on your own.
Yeah.
That's an interesting parallel.
It might not be that bad, but it's probably pretty bad.
Well, it's like the whole Britney Spears thing it's almost like that's almost like a fable in a way, like gone horribly wrong. Like when you tell people like an amazing influence for several years, and that's like almost forgotten now, right? And that's a perfect example of someone being completely swept under the rug because of all her crazy shit going on with the family and her management and all that. But yeah, it's definitely a case of chew 'em up, spit 'em out. Like this Daisy Clover character was amazing for a minute, but we've moved on to the next hot thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, he even says that to her, almost word for word. That'll be more like you.
Yeah, I was also thinking of who's the actress from iCarly?
Jeanette McCurdy.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Who's not on the new one? Yeah,
right. I've watched a few of those in preparation for this episode, and it's like, oh yeah, nothing has changed. I mean, there's some protections in place, but realistically,
I think there's legal and like physical protections in place, but I think that a lot of shit happens is mental, and that is never taken into account, it seems. Like, and I think this shows that pretty well. Yeah. Maybe not. Honestly, the physical side of it is not, because she's basically a revolving door to these men, and I thought that was an interesting thing. Like, I love that I forgot to mention this. I love that they acknowledge the whole jailbait thing. Because at first I thought like nothing was going to be said, and I was like,
it goes by really fast, but they
whatever. Yeah. And he's like, oh, the way it impacts you or the way it's going to impact me. Like, because I even tried to Google, like, how old is Wade? Like, how old is he meant to be? But it just,
it's never very clear, but he's clearly older than 15. So.
Yeah, I would say a good 10 years, maybe. You know, he's been in the industry for a while too. So he's done this cycle already, and he knows every beat of this drum. And this is him basically like taking someone under his wing in a way.
And at first I thought what it was going to be. Yeah, at first I thought it was just going to be like, oh shit, I know what she's going to go through. Let me make this, you know, less hard on her. And nope, it got weird.
Well, the other thing too is I question why they didn't bump her age up just a little bit, just based off the fact that you have somebody older playing the character. I don't think it would have affected the movie. You still would have been a jailbait scenario if she was 17. You know, I thought that might have been, if they're going to make the change with the Wade character, why not bump that up a little bit too? But yeah.
Hard to say. But no, watching this made me think of Drew Barrymore and everything that happened with her. It made me actually remember Anna Paquin when she was up for an Oscar. I think she was 12 years old for the piano. And her remark that, how is this possible that there's someone out there who makes cocktail dresses for 12-year-olds?
Yeah.
So they.
But then if you think, and this may seem like a stretch, but look at the treatment of girls in the whole toddlers and tiara thing.
Oh yeah. Ugh.
I mean, that's why cocktail dresses exist for 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
I mean, we always play this don't sexualize children aspect in things, which facts, you shouldn't. But then it's such a double-edged sword, vicious circle of what came before, you know, the cart or the horse. I realized I wanted to talk a certain way, and then I realized I didn't want to talk about it. Because it can be such a hairy topic in the sense, and it even goes on with adult women of the whole, you get what you deserve because you were dressed like that, or this happened to you because of this. And it's like, it's not the fault of the victim. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like right or wrong becomes a gray area.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be, but that's the universe that we're in as,
And that's another thing about this movie is it makes a lot of claims, but it's also pretty vague. And it kind of leaves you up to your own devices to come up with what you think certain scenes mean, or, you know, they're not as in your face or deliberate. And, you know, that's also filmmaking of another era too. Not everything had to be overly explained.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, what do you take from this?
They were a bit more trusting of their audience.
Yeah.
In a way that a lot of movies aren't now, where we're going to explain to you exactly what Freddy Krueger did.
Oh God, can you imagine seeing this remade now?
Oof.
Oh.
Yeah, there would be nothing left unturned. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see that
happening anytime soon, but
I like that we're all just like, ugh. Like, let's just leave this movie alone. Let's not remake this.
Well, you know, there's not a lot of, they don't make these type of movies anymore either. I mean, you have movies about the industry occasionally, but, you know,
it's never out and out Hollywood. I get what I see what you're saying.
It's something like The Player, or that's just kind of almost a cartoon version.
Right. It's satire.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's accelerated
actual serious
reality.
Like, we need to acknowledge we have a problem kind of a movie, which I don't think they would ever do.
I think that was Apollo 13, right? Yeah. But
Houston.
Well, you know how much I like to throw out Apollo 13 quotes, so yeah.
And Ron Howard.
Ron Howard rules. He's awesome.
Eat my dust.
Occasionally.
I like him as the narrator in Arrested Development.
You know which movie of his I'd never watched back in the day, and I kind of just was like, I'll get to it. And it's certainly a movie of that era. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But
now I want to know what movie.
Yeah, it's it's one of those ensemble pieces with every acclaimed actor available in one movie, and it's The Paper.
Oh,
it's Michael Keaton,
Marissa
Tomei, Glenn Close, Robert Duvall, Randy Quaid.
I've heard of that.
It's a great little movie.
That was about the same time.
It's a great little movie.
Yeah.
Did he also make Did he also do City Hall, or was that somebody else?
No, he didn't.
Those movies came out right around the same time.
Yeah, there was a point where you were just like, I'll see that at the Dollar Theater, and you just never did.
Never did, yeah. I don't think I've ever seen it either.
But I mean, hey, Clint Howard's in it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We know that's a selling point.
It is kind of difficult to make exciting movies about newspapers. But yeah.
Yeah, but
it can be done.
I
like
dig
those
that.
types of films. Yeah, I think it's an interesting look.
And it's a 24-hour scope that the film has.
Oh, so I like that too.
Yeah.
I just like when mediums, whether it's film, books, whatever, make you look into the lives of something that you don't do.
Right,
you know
the
what
machinery
I mean?
of it all.
Yeah. Which kind of does tie in with what we watch, and I think why that one scene is important, because the average person doesn't know how films are made, So it's interesting. You know what movie did that I loved? I watched for the first time a couple years ago, Singing in the Rain, and I just thought it was really interesting and so beautifully made, and it shows that side that you wouldn't normally think about.
The curtain. Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that film.
Oh, it deserves every accolade it gets. It was fantastic.
And to tie it in with this movie, have either of you seen Legal Eagles, starring Robert Redford?
Yes.
Where he and Deborah Winger watch Singing in the Rain on television separately in their apartments, and they're on the phone talking about it, and it's a great scene.
They do that in When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, but they did it first here in Legal Eagles.
Yeah, but I love When Harry Met Sally.
I do too. I absolutely love that movie. But Legal Eagles doesn't get enough fanfare, so I'm putting it out there.
I've never heard of it. I'll look it up.
Ivan Reitman movie right after Ghostbusters, and of course, in between Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and Twins was in there as well, so it gets forgotten. Terrence Stamp, also. Daryl Hannah, featuring a hit song by Rod Stewart, Love Touch. Thank you very much.
That was the title? Love Touch, thank you very much?
No, that's my when I mention it, that's how I have to say it.
Okay. Love Touch, thank you very much.
So Inside Daisy Clover, I don't know how rewatchable it is, but you should be seeing at least, watch it a couple of times, because you're going to get something different out of it.
Like in general, yeah.
Yeah, it is rewatchable. I have like a repeat function on my DVD, and you can just play it again.
Of course you do.
Nice. Okay.
I thought everyone had that. Okay.
I don't use a DVD player anymore.
Oh, look at you.
Oh, fancy.
And they don't have that on consoles. No, I use my PlayStation or Xbox.
Oh, okay.
I still use discs. I very much still like physical media.
Yeah, particularly the Olivia Newton-John variety.
Yes, I get it.
Like the 45 of physical. Anyway,
why won't it
or the
fit
12
in the
inch
Xbox?
if you want the extended mix. Yeah.
But Inside Daisy Clover is available on streaming for now, and can get it through the Warner Video Archive, which is where I got it on Blu-ray. The Blu-ray edition is pretty sparse. I think it comes with a cartoon as an extra feature.
And the trailer.
Would love to hear this with some commentary from any film historians want to jump on that. That would be great.
Yeah. We didn't mention Robert Mulligan, by the way. And he's not around to talk about that film.
Well, that would stop him from doing the commentary, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
I doubt Redford would.
No, I mean, he does retrospective interviews and stuff about films, but I don't know that I've heard him on a commentary track. No.
I mean, if they're going to do a retrospective interview with Redford, it's going to be about like The Candidate or Downhill Racer or things like that. I wouldn't see this one coming up.
The Candidate, yeah, definitely. Or All the President's Men. He's done that. The Sting, of course.
Right.
He even did a retrospective commentary on
Electric
The Sting
Horseman?
2.
Oh,
no.
Sneakers? No?
You wish.
Yeah, I do wish. But who knows? Maybe someday that'll happen. I don't know. I would love to see more.
He used to do private commentaries for sneakers whenever Air Jordan ads would be on the television. There's another one of those Air Jordan ads.
Jordan ads, yeah. Just wanted to comment on that.
That's a wrap.
We'll put Nathan in the ADR booth and he can loop all the rest of his dialogue. I'll be okay.
I hope I don't get traumatized by doing that.
We'll just keep playing this episode over and over and make you redo all your lines. It'll be okay.
Again.
Again. But with that, we'll draw this episode to a close. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, take this job and shove it. I'm not working here no more. Yeah, my woman done left. She took all the reasons I was looking for.
Well, that's it. Another smooth and thrilling episode has come to a close. Thank you so much for listening. The Smooth Thrills Radio Hour is a production of Ghostcraft and is recorded live in Dallas, Texas. Please email your questions and comments to autopilot at smoochthrillsradiohour.com or drop us a message on Instagram. Whichever you fancy. Enjoy the rest of your day.
They had a lot of bills to pay, and I'd give the shirt right off of my back if I had the guts to say what? Yeah, take this job and shove it. I'm not working here no more. Yeah, my woman done left and she took all the reasons I was looking for.
This has been a Ghostcraft presentation.